This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Haboim. Good to see everybody back. We're now continuing our Shiurim, and we begin Sefer Devarim. Sefer Devarim, and we want to thank Dr. Zakheim Umeshpachta for once again generously sponsoring the Shiurim on Sefer Devarim. L'iloi Nishmas, Reb Shlomo Eliezer ben Harav Yaakov Zakheim, and L'iloi Nishmas, Dr. Zakheim's mother, Rivka Bas Tuvia Halevi, whose yahrzeit is coming up on Chav Vav Av, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Elul. And on this occasion, we wish Dr. Zakheim Umeshpachta Refuos, Yeshuos, Bracha v'Hatzlacha, Ad Bias Goel Tzadak. Okay, we have a very important subject tonight, and that is it's really a lamda shashir, the halachic ramifications of when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos. So you say, how come there are no public service announcements today in the beginning of the shir? Okay, fine. We'll give you some public service announcements. First of all, we want to take the opportunity. We want to invite everybody. Sunday morning, Tisha B'Av, everybody's invited to our newly expanded Beis HaMedrash that has quadrupled in size over the last couple of weeks. Air-conditioned, newly lit. Everybody's cordially invited to our annual Tisha B'Av program, which this year will be very meaningful because we're just returning from the location of a number of where the kinos actually transpired. We were just at the square where the burning of the Talmud was in 1242, and many of the places where the Crusaders traveled. We saw the aqueducts built by the Romans, so we had first-hand footage of a lot of the real-life locations of the kinos. Everyone's cordially invited. If you haven't yet gotten your Sefer on the 3 weeks, 9 days, now's a good time to get it, and time for Tisha B'Av. And now that we're back from France, the news of the next trip, we're already working on it, but we're not going to announce it now during the 9 days, but stay tuned, the Mitzvah Hashem, for next Wednesday night. Okay, so we have a very important topic this evening, and that is, how do we view Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos? What perspective should we have regarding, we know when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it's pushed off to Sunday. Okay, it's pushed off to Sunday. So is it more lenient, or is it more strict? So how could it be more strict? Why would it be more strict? So that is the subject of tonight's shiur. We begin with the comment of the Rosh in Masechta Tainis, Ois Lamed Beis. The Rosh says that if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, you could eat as much as you want. You could bring upon your table as much food as Shlomo HaMelech in his time. You want, normally at the Sudas HaMafsekes, you can't eat two cooked dishes. This year at the Sudas HaMafsekes, you could have a full-blown 5-star gala kiddush. You don't have to refrain from anything. There's no sitting on the floor. There are no eggs. There are no ashes. Usually, there's no crying at the Sudas HaMafsekes. I know you guys, usually you're sitting there on the floor, weeping into the cup, then you dip the bread in the cup with the ashes. None of that. You eat as much as you want. On Shabbos, you could eat. You don't have to refrain from any of the 5 inuyim. And says the Rosh, Ein tzarich linoig dvarim shel tzina. Even though on Tisha B'Av, Tash Mishamita, marital relations is prohibited, not this Shabbos, says the Rosh. On this Shabbos, even though it's Tisha B'Av, none of the restrictions apply. That's the opinion of the Rosh. And then the Rosh quotes the opinion of his Rabbi. Who's the Rebbe of the Rosh? Rabbeinu Meir. Who's that? The Maharam Meir Rotenberg. The great Rebbe of the Rosh, Maharam Meir Rotenberg, is the author of Kinam Membez, Shali Srufa Be'esh. The Maharam Meir Rotenberg is the author of Tosfos and Masechta Yuma, and he's the Rebbe of the Rosh when he was captured in the palace in Einsasheim. So the Maharam Meir Rotenberg paskin that they're now to redeem him, and his student, the Rosh, disagreed. The Rosh said that you're allowed to pay as much as you want for a hostage when the hostage is the Gadol Hadar. So the Rosh quotes his Rebbe, Rabbeinu Meir, who in turn quotes his Rebbe. Who's the Rebbe of the Maharam Meir Rotenberg? That's right, the Arzarua, Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina. And he says, when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, even though we push it off till Sunday, but regarding certain halachos, it's still Tisha B'Av. Regarding which halachos? Tashma Shamita. marital relations is asur, says the Marami Rothenberg. Why? Just like if somebody has a relative that passes away on Yom Tiv, what's the halacha? Does the Avela start on Yom Tiv? No, the Avela is pushed up to after Yom Tiv. But Dvarim Shebetzina, Tashamita is asur on Yom Tiv. So that means that even though we push off the Avelos, that's only for public matters. But for private matters, we still conduct ourselves in Avelos on Yom Tiv, if somebody has Avelos. So too, when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, even though we push off Tisha B'Av to Sunday, regarding private matters, it's Tisha B'Av, and private matters, Tashmita is asur, says Marami Rothenberg. And says Marami Rothenberg, Tisha B'Av and mourning, Avelos, are the same. This is the psak of the Or Zarua. Comes Marami Rothenberg. My Rebbe said it's asur b'tashamita on Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos. Then all the Jewish people have to follow my Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Mivino, the Or Zarua. Why? Kedai hu beis Elokeinu. You think the Beis Hamikdash is at least worthy enough that one time a year you'll refrain from Tashmish Hamita? Says the Rosh, I don't agree with my Rebbe. Why not? Because everybody knows that mourning is much more strict than Tisha B'Av. Because somebody loses a relative, it's a fresh pain. Tisha B'Av happened 2,000 years ago. So you can tell me, just like if somebody loses a relative on Yom Tiv, Tashmish Hamita is asur, so too if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, Tashmish Hamita is asur. What does one thing got to do with the other? Avelos is much more painful than Tisha B'Av. When people lose a relative, they actually cry. And Tisha B'Av, people spend the majority of the day picking out what Danish they're going to eat when it's over. And if not that, then on Allah, and if not they don't do that, they at least are Mekayim, the great mitzvah of watching Jewish movies on Tisha B'Av, right? You know that even though the Gemara says that Tisha B'Av you're supposed to mourn the Beis Hamikdash, but nowadays we have this great mitzvah of watching Jewish movies. And especially if they're inspiring. If they're inspiring, then it's even the greatest possible mitzvah. What do they have to do with the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? But as long as you feel inspired, that's, I'm joking. But says the Rosh, even though you could differentiate between mourning and Tisha B'Av, my Rebbe said Tashmish Hamita is forbidden. You would listen to my Rebbe even if he was lenient, even if he was strict and I'm lenient. Certainly, he's being strict and I feel you could be lenient. You got to follow my rabbi, says Marami Rothenberg. So again, this is the Rosh, quoting his Rebbe, the Marami Rothenberg, quoting his Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina, and the Marami Rothenberg is saying that even though I don't really agree with my Rebbe, but my Rebbe said Dvarim Shebetzina should be asur, all the Jewish nation has to follow him. Says the Rosh, that's nice that my Rebbe thinks that everyone has to listen to his Rebbe, but I don't think that everyone needs to listen to my Rebbe. And therefore the Rosh says, I think Tashmish Hamita should be mutter. And that's the minhag. Okay, that's the opinion of the Rosh. So what's the halacha? Comes the Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch says, and this is a very important lesson in learning halacha. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tav Kuf Nun Daled, if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, you're allowed to eat, you're allowed to drink, you're allowed to wash, and it's mutter b'tashmish hamita. Whose shita is that? The Rosh. Comes the Rama, v'yesh oisrim tashmish hamita. Some prohibit. Whose shita is that? Marami Rothenberg, quoting Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina. What is the practice? V'chein noihagin. That's the minhag. The minhag is, it's prohibited. Who is that like? Marami Rothenberg in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina. Now, the Rama says some aser, and that's the minhag. That means it's only a minhag to aser tashmish hamita. Which means, says the Mishnah Berurah, that if a woman's Leil Tvila comes out this Friday night, it's mutter. Because it's not inherently aser, it's only a chumrah. So therefore, if the Friday night is a Leil Tvila, it's mutter. Otherwise, we're stringent. Now, on Tisha B'Av itself, of course it's Asar. On Tisha B'Av itself, in the nighttime, one may not even touch their wife. We're not noyeg harchakos, you could pass things, but you can't negia as Asar. The night of Tisha B'Av, during the day, yesh lahakel. What is the machlokes between the Marami Rothenberg and the Rosh? Why would one opinion say Tasha Mita is permitted, that's the opinion of the Rosh, and why would the Marami Rothenberg say Tasha Mita is Asar? So, let us try to analyze the lamdos of what occurs when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos. In general, what day of the month do we fast for Churban Beis HaMikdash? The 9th. Why do we fast the 9th? When did the temple actually burn down? The majority of the temple burned down on the 10th. So why do we fast that? So comes Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, if I would have been around and they would have asked me, I would have gotten up and I would have said, Tisha B'Av is the 10th. Why should you fast the 9th? The majority of the temple burned down on the 10th. Rabbi Yochanan said, if I would have been around, I would have made it on the 10th. And the Gemara says, and what do the Chachamim hold? The Chachamim say what? Aschule paranusa adifa. That the beginning of the punishment is worse. The beginning of something is much, much worse than the end of it. Some say it's because Ishay Mishum Chitzav, when you light a fire, what's going to happen is latent in the initial conflagration. Some say, I once heard from a great rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Warman, he once explained that if somebody hears bad news, the initial report of it is the most devastating and shocking, and then afterwards you sort of get used to it. So the beginning of something is always worse. But Rabbi Yochanan says that if Tisha B'Av comes out, that he would have enacted Tisha B'Av on the 10th because the majority of the Beis HaMikdash burnt down on the 10th. When Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos and it's pushed off to Sunday, you know who's like jumping through hoops, who's so happy about that? Rabbi Yochanan. He's like, finally we have a real Tisha B'Av. So actually, according to Rabbi Yochanan, Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos that's pushed off to the 10th is more chamor than a regular Tisha B'Av. Because a regular Tisha B'Av is on the wrong day. Then now it's on the right day. On the other hand, Rabbi held that when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, he said, Hove itchi, let's get rid of it. Rabbi was a very popular opinion. Rabbi wanted, the Gemara in Megillah and Daf Hey says, Rabbi rachatz b'kroina shel tzipayri b'shavasa b'tamuz u'v'roitze levatel Tisha B'Av. He wanted to levatel Tisha B'Av. And the Gemara says, no, loy kachaya ma'isel Tisha B'Av shechaliyos b'Shabbos. And he said, once you push it off completely. So Rabbi would look at this year's Tisha B'Av and say, what are you guys doing? Spend the whole day. Watch as many Jewish movies as you can. It's not even Tisha B'Av, you know? And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, this is the real Tisha B'Av. So says the Ksav Sofer that actually we could probe and analyze and try to get to the bottom of how do we view Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos. Do we view it that when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, Tisha B'Av is Shabbos? The only thing is we can't not eat on Shabbos, we cannot drink on Shabbos, we cannot bathe on Shabbos, so we have to push that off to Sunday. But whatever we could observe on Shabbos, we would observe on Shabbos. So regarding private matters, regarding Tasha Shamita, which we could not do on Shabbos, so regarding that, Shabbos is Tisha B'Av. So do we view it that Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos and it's pushed off to Sunday? Or do we say that since Tisha B'Av cannot be observed on Shabbos, under these circumstances, Tisha B'Av is not Shabbos, it's Sunday this year? When? Right, that's the Chakira. The question is, the two tzadim are, do we consider it that when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it's really Shabbos is Tisha B'Av, but since you can't observe it, you reschedule and you push it off, you put it on Sunday? Or under these circumstances, Tisha B'Av this year comes out on Shabbos?
Why can't you fast on Shabbos?
Because the prophet Isaiah said, "V'karasa l'Shabbos oineg." you got to enjoy the Shabbos.
When Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you fast.
Because we have a drasha that you fast even on Shabbos.
Which one is it? The Yom Kippur fast? Which one?
On Yom Kippur,
When?
on Yom Kippur, it's asur midaraisa to eat, and you don't have to eat midaraisa on Shabbos. So Shabbos, the Yom Kippur wins, but when it comes to Tisha B'av, Shabbos wins. So the Ksav Sofer says like this: the Rosh that says Tashmish Hamita is mutter. You know how the Rosh views it? The Rosh says this year Shabbos is not Tisha B'av. Sunday is Tisha B'av. Sunday is Tisha B'av. Tashmish Hamita is mutter on Shabbos. On the other hand, the Marami Rotenberg and the Arza Ruah say that Tisha B'av is Shabbos. It's just you can't observe certain things, so that's pushed off to Sunday. But Tashmish Hamita you could observe. So since you could observe it, Tashmish Hamita is Asur. The Chakira is, Rabbi say, how do you view Tisha B'av that comes out on Shabbos? Do we say that it falls on Shabbos and you push off whatever you can observe, whatever you could observe, Tisha B'av is Shabbos? Or do we say it's not Shabbos this year, it's Sunday? That's the Chakira. Rabbi Yochanan would say probably it's Sunday, because at least that's the right day. Rabbi would say no, it's Shabbos. What would you say about the following question? Raise your hand if you have a birthday during the year. Okay, just checking. Now raise your hand if your birthday comes out in the month of Av. Really? Yehuda Glatstein. What? Chaf Dalet. So, good. Only one birthday? Well, raise your hand if your birthday comes out on the 10th day of Av. Who wants to volunteer to make believe their birthday is Nissim? Nissim make believe his birthday is on the 10th day of Av. Could you also make believe you're 13 years old? Okay. So Nissim is becoming bar mitzvah this Sunday. And by the way, Naftali Glatstein is becoming bar mitzvah a few weeks ago, but he's laning this coming Shabbos Nachamu. You're all invited. Shabbos Nachamu. Big Kiddush, okay? I know, you can live in Lawrence, wherever you live. You could walk in. Well, you could stay for lunch, you could stay for the whole Shabbos. You could come Friday night already. You could come now. You could move in, if you want, into Naftali's room. But let's say your bar mitzvah is this Sunday. Do you need to fast this Sunday? So you'll say, what do you mean? Even if I'm not bar mitzvah, I'm close enough to bar mitzvah to fast. So halacha is, if you're not bar mitzvah, not only do you not fast, you're not allowed to fast. I don't care. Oh, I'm a macho guy and I'm cool. I've been fasting since I'm 2.5 years old. You're not allowed to fast before your bar mitzvah, except for Yom Kippur at age 11. You're not allowed to. Oh, what do you mean? But I once heard you're supposed to fast 3 times before your bar mitzvah. Now I know people are going to send me emails. They have a custom. Reb Shlomo Zalman said there are 3 things that people have made up that you need to do 3 times. Number 1, that you need to fast 3 times before your bar mitzvah. No such thing. And I know people can say they're minhag Ashkenaz. I'm just telling you what Reb Shlomo Zalman says. One thing, no, you don't fast 3 times before your bar mitzvah. Until your bar mitzvah, you eat. Once your bar mitzvah, you don't eat. This is all the fast besides Yom Kippur. The other thing is, people say in order to move a Sefer Torah, you have to use it 3 times. You don't have to use it 3 times. You just need to have an aron for it. And the other thing is, people think you need to wash your hands 3 times for bread. You only wash your hands 2 times for bread. Got it? So, let's say a kid is bar mitzvah on Sunday. Do they have to fast? So we say like this. If the Tisha B'av really is Shabbos, and we fast on Sunday, it's like you bought a ticket to a Met game and it was rained out, so they give you a double header the next day. So look, on Shabbos, I wasn't chayiv to fast. Sunday's only a makeup. You're patur from fasting. Now that would be a good bar mitzvah pshato. How is it possible to be a bar mitzvah and not have to fast on Tisha B'av? if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos and it's pushed up to Sunday and you become bar mitzvah on Sunday, well, if it's a makeup for Sunday, I didn't have to fast Shabbos, so I don't have to fast Sunday. But if under the circumstances where Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it doesn't fall out on Shabbos, the Chachamim initially make it Sunday because anyway that's the day that the majority of the Beis HaMikdash burnt down, then of course you have to fast. Now, since the halacha is regarding Tashmish Hamita, is it mutter or asr or a chumrah? It's a chumrah. That means we hold really, halachically it's permitted. But it's a chumrah that all of Klal Yisrael has accepted upon themselves. But if halachically it's permitted, that means we hold be'ikr Tisha B'Av is Sunday. So then halacha l'maisa, says the Marsham in Chelek Gimel Siman Shin Samach Gimel, pointed out by the Sefer Elohim Moyadoi, says the Marsham, a boy who's a bar mitzvah on Yud Av would have to fast. Got it? Yeah, you sure? You want to say it over? After. Next nafkamina. We know there's something called Shavuot Shechal by Tisha B'Av. The week that Tisha B'Av comes out in. The week that Tisha B'Av comes out in is much more chamor. For instance, even though the minhag is not to take a haircut and not to shave the whole 3 weeks, we know that if somebody, for the sake of parnasa, would need to shave, one could shave, let's say, up till the week of Tisha B'Av. Or there are certain stringencies that we observe up to the week of Tisha B'Av. What is the week of Tisha B'Av this year? So the Mechaber says that, is the week of Tisha B'Av, by the way, all the days after Tisha B'Av also? No, it's only that week before Tisha B'Av. So it says the Shulchan Aruch in Sim Tav Kuf Nun Aleph, that if Tisha B'Av comes out on Sunday or Shabbos, and it's pushed off to Sunday, the week after Shabbos and Sunday, it's permitted to launder and to take a haircut. And the week before is also permitted. Then the Mechaber says, some say the week before is prohibited. Says the Rama, the minhag is to be machmer anyway from Rosh Chodesh. And haircuts all 3 weeks. Now you have to know how to learn a Shulchan Aruch. The Mechaber says the week, if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos or Sunday, the week after is permitted, the week before is permitted. Whose opinion is that? The Mechaber just says stam, unattributed. He doesn't say some say it's permitted, he says it's permitted. And then he brings yesh mi shaimer, there are those who say the week before is asr. So when the Mechaber says one opinion stam, and one opinion yesh mi shaimer, which one is he paskening like? The first one, the stam one, the unqualified one. Which means the Shulchan Aruch paskins, this year, there is no Shvuah Shechal B'Ai Tisha B'Av. There's no Shavuot Shechal by Tisha B'Av. By the way, which opinion is the first opinion? The Rosh. Number 7. You mean it should be Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos. Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, so it should be the whole week before. Very good. So says the Sefer Elohim Moyadai, the machloikis of whether there is Shavuot Shechal by Tisha B'Av is the very chakira that we've been discussing. If we view it that when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it comes out on Shabbos, but what can we do? We push it off to Sunday, so then the whole week before it should be Asr because it's the Shavuot Shechal by Tisha B'Av, like David is saying, and that would be the opinion of the Marame Rotenberg and Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina, who says Tasher Shamita is Asr, and then you would say a Katan, who is Bar Mitzvah on Yud Av, would not have to fast because he didn't have to fast Shabbos. Why should he have to fast on the makeup? But if you hold that under the circumstances where Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it doesn't fall out on Shabbos under these circumstances. It's lechatchila, inherently, this year it's Sunday. So there is no Shavuot Shechal by Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av is Sunday, so the whole week before has no relevance to Tisha B'Av. That means the Mechaber is going like the first opinion. The first opinion is the Rosh, and the Rosh is L'shitase, the Rosh who holds that Tashmish Hamita is permitted Friday night, because Friday night is not Tisha B'Av. He holds there's no Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av this year. And that's how we hold. We hold this year, there's no Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av. So you say, if there's no Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av, then it would come out that let's say you wanted to travel somewhere for Rashi's Yartzeit, which was Chav Tes Av, and you're not going to make it back until the 9 days, where perhaps one would say you can't just travel for leisure during the 9 days. So how could those people go to Rabbeinu Tam and the Rihazakein and the Shagas Aryeh? They're coming back during the 9 days. Are you allowed to travel during the 9 days? Says Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, yes, this year you're allowed to. Why? Number one, because this is not like going to, it's not like you're going to the Riviera over here. You're going to Rashi's Kever. This is not like you're going on some leisure vacation. But Rav Shmuel also said there's no Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av this year, because Tisha B'Av is Sunday. It's not Shabbos.
So therefore, you could shave then work for Parnasa. You could
So this year, for work or Parnasa, technically you would be permitted to
more stringency over the 9 days.
What?
The 9 days are equivalent to 3 weeks.
Legabe shaving, yes. Yeah. Legabe shaving, yes. Legabe meat, no. Regarding wine, no. For Sfardim, there's no such thing as the 9 days. Basically.
I heard some do.
The 9 days?
Yeah, that some don't eat meat. Yeah.
All right. I can't speak for Moroccans. No. Next. Now this is very interesting. Now there's some people who are very, very machmer on this. We know that on Tisha B'Av we don't learn. And some people, they just, out sveika de yoima, they don't learn the whole year, because it might be Tisha B'Av. It could get confusing. Or it might be Leil Nittel, We don't learn on Tisha B'Av. Why? Pikudei Hashem Yisharim Mesam Chelev. What about Erev Tisha B'Av? Erev Tisha B'Av. You're allowed to eat, you're allowed to drink, you're allowed to wash. But the Ramah has an interesting chumrah. The Ramah's chumrah is you don't learn Erev Tisha B'Av from Chatzos and on, except for the items that you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av itself. What about, says Ramah, if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos? So now Shabbos becomes Erev Tisha B'Av. So then, you don't learn Pirkei Avos, says Ramah, Shabbos afternoon, Mincha time. And you don't go for Spatziering Erev Tisha B'Av. You don't go for a stroll. Now this is very interesting. The Mishnah Berurah wants to know, why don't you learn Erev Tisha B'Av? Says Mishnah Berurah, because Torah makes you happy. But it says Mishnah Berurah, this is not a halacha, because you're allowed to eat Erev Tisha B'Av, so why can't you learn? So the Mishnah Berurah says, because since we have other options, you could learn Kamsa Bar Kamsa, Moed Katan, Yirmiyah, so there's a minhag not to learn. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, this minhag is very questionable. Many Achronim say it's a good minhag not to learn. I'm talking about when Tisha B'Av comes out during the week, and Erev Tisha B'Av is during the week. Many Achronim say it's a good custom not to learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. Even if Erev Tisha B'Av is Shabbos, follow the Ramah, don't say Pirkei Avos. But many Achronim, says the Mishnah Berurah, question this minhag very much. Number one, the Marshal. Says the Marshal, I learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. I let other people learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. Says the Gra, it's an excessive chumrah not to learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. Says the Maimer Mordechai, it's ridiculous not to learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. It brings to a lot of bittul Torah. What do you mean? The guy's a big masmid. I'm a big masmid when I can learn when I want to learn. But now you tell me I have to learn Kamsa Bar Kamsa for the 500th time? How many times can I learn that? The Maimer Mordechai says. Even a big masmid, he doesn't want to learn Moed Katan again. Go learn Eiv. I'll learn Eiv when I want to learn Eiv. Don't force me to learn Eiv. Ein Adam Loimen El Mashli Bechafetz. And therefore the Maimer Mordechai says, you could be Mekel Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. And he learns Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. And therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, somebody who wants to learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos in a regular year we don't throw rotten tomatoes at them. So if I were to ask you, what is the best thing to do Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos? To learn or not to learn? Better not to. Better to learn Kamsa Bar Kamsa. If somebody does, you don't take an old tomato and throw it at them. Okay? I don't want to see you throwing any old tomatoes at people learning Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos. The Mishnah Berurah continues that regarding when Erev Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, the Taz says, okay, you don't want to learn Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos, fine. But when it's Shabbos, no. You're not going to, there's no problem learning Erev Tisha B'Av Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, you want to learn Erev Tisha B'Av Shabbos after Chatzos? Not only will we not throw rotten tomatoes at you, you could rely on that. In other words, it's not even better not to learn. So in the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah, this year, Erev Tisha B'Av after Chatzos, you can learn. Okay. Then we have the Bir Halacha. And the Bir Halacha quotes the Maimar Mordechai. And the Maimar Mordechai says that not to learn Erev Tisha B'Av on Shabbos, says the Maimar Mordechai, there's no reason not to learn. Either Ramah says you could learn Dvarim HaMutarim, says the Maimar Mordechai, that's not a good reason. Because people will only learn what they want to learn. We see many times, I have a question. On Tisha B'Av itself, you're not allowed to learn regular things. So you're allowed to learn Kamsa Bar Kamsa, you're allowed to learn Yirmiyah, you're allowed to learn Eiv. Do you have to? Or are you allowed to twiddle your thumbs if you want? In other words, we know on a regular day, a person has an obligation to learn whenever they can. How about on Tisha B'Av? What do we say? Do we say, once I'm putter from Talmud Torah, in other words, once I'm not allowed to learn regular things, could I sit around and watch Jewish movies the whole day? Or am I obligated to learn Dvarim HaMutarim? Says the Maimar Mordechai, even very big Talmidei Chachamim, we see when Tisha B'Av comes, they don't learn so much. Why don't they learn Eiv and Eicha? Because they don't really want to learn that. They're not, they don't like to learn that. That's not what their regular learning is. And says the Maimar Mordechai, count me among those who have a hard time learning on Tisha B'Av the Dvarim HaMutarim. Therefore, I do not pay attention to the Ramah. I hold that even when Tisha B'Av comes out on a weekday, and Erev Tisha was a weekday, you could learn right up to Tisha B'Av. And if I had enough guts, I would have said, you should learn on Tisha B'Av itself. Says the Maimar Mordechai, if I wasn't afraid of the other rabbis in town, I would say you should learn on Tisha B'Av. Why? Because what are people doing on Tisha B'Av? You're saying, don't learn. So what are people doing? They spend half the day wandering the streets of the supermarket. Should I get a chocolate Danish? Should I get a cheese Danish? Should I get a Danish with a cherry? And they spend hours and hours, and then they have chakiras. What kind of eggs should they have? With onions, without onions, orange juice with the pulp, orange juice without the pulp, strained. And by the time they're finished thinking about their post-fast festivities, the day is almost over. And people, of course, on a higher madrega, they don't spend the whole day in the supermarket, but they go from one Jewish inspirational video to the next. Says that Maimar, that's why God made Tisha B'Av, for people to be inspired. God made Tisha B'Av to mourn for the Beis HaMikdash. So people are not doing that. So you're better off learning. I would say you should learn. Open up your Gemara. It's better than wandering the supermarket thinking about Danishes. Better than watching inspirational movies. So you should just learn. But what could I do? Nobody's going to agree with me. And it's similar to that which the Yerushalmi says. The Yerushalmi said, really, if it was up to them, they would allow people to work on Chol Hamoed. Because the only reason you're not allowed to work on Chol Hamoed is so that people could learn. What, people are sitting in the Beis Medrash learning the whole Chol Hamoed? They're not doing that, so they're better off going to work. So too, says Maimar Mordechai, in my opinion, you're better off learning on Tisha B'Av itself. But look, I don't have the power to do that. But on Erev Tisha B'Av, of course you're allowed to learn. It's not mentioned in Shas not to learn. It's not mentioned in the Poskim not to learn. And I learn up to the night. Avada, if you're on such a high madrega and you can learn Eoiv and Yirmiyah and Eicha, Kadosh Yamar Lai. But for regular people like me, says the Maimar Mordechai, I learn Erev Tisha B'Av right up to Chatzos. Now the question is, Rabbi Isai, says the Magen Avram, what about this year where Shabbos is Tisha B'Av? Okay, it's pushed off to Sunday regarding eating, regarding drinking. But just like maybe Tasha Shamita is Aser, maybe you're not allowed to learn the whole Shabbos this year. Because Shabbos is Tisha B'Av. So the Magen Avram brings the tzad, you're not allowed to learn this Shabbos.
It's not the Varm Shabbat.
It's not Dvarim Shabbatzina. You mean it would be public, not to, but it's not so obvious you're not learning. So you'll just, you'll nap, and you'll walk around the block. Is it so obvious? The Magen Avram brings an opinion. Maybe you're not allowed to learn this Tisha B'Av.
We have Kriyas HaTorah on Tisha B'Av. Kriyas HaTorah is like what?
Well, we have a somber Kriyas HaTorah. No, not the. It's like Eicha.
Is it?
Yeah, you lean it very quietly. It's very low. It's very. Naftali, you want to lean the Tisha B'Av? It's from your Bar Mitzvah Parsha. It's not like you're on the spot here. It's not like there are other people in the room or on the video. We'll see. So says the Chasam Sofer, the Chakira of the Magen Avram of whether you're allowed to learn the Shabbos is, how do we view Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos? If we view it that Tisha B'Av is Shabbos, but what could we do? We push it off to Sunday. But regarding learning, we could be noyeg not to learn the whole Shabbos. But how have we sort of concluded so far? When Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, do we view it that Shabbos is Tisha B'Av? We view it that Sunday is Tisha B'Av. We view it that Sunday is Tisha B'Av. Shabbos is not Tisha B'Av. And therefore, this year, you're allowed to learn at least in the morning. After Chatzos, those who are noyeg like the Rama don't learn. You don't really have to be noyeg like the Rama. By the way, the Chasam Sofer has a very interesting svara. Why learning Erev Tisha B'Av is Asr after Chatzos. We don't say eating is Asr, we don't say drinking is Asr, we don't say washing is Asr. Why learning? Chasam Sofer says, because whatever you learn, the second part of the day, you'll be thinking about it at night. So really, you're allowed to learn up to the night. The problem is, if you're going to hear a shiur after Chatzos at Erev Tisha B'Av, you're going to be thinking about it in the night, and then you're going to be besimcha. You're going to be so happy you came down to this world even in the nighttime. So that would be the reason for the minhag of the Rama not to fast.
Not to learn.
Not to learn. Thank you. Next case. Does a woman who is pregnant fast on Tisha B'Av that comes out on Shabbos and is pushed up to Sunday? Does a pregnant woman fast? Normally, does a pregnant woman fast on the 4 fast days? Besides Tisha B'Av, a pregnant woman does not fast on the Dalat Tanesim, but on Tisha B'Av, a pregnant woman does fast. But what about a Tisha B'Av Nidcha? Or what about this? Raise your hand if you ever made a bris on Tisha B'Av. You made a bris on Yom Kippur? Rabbi Avi Weber was bris on Yom Kippur. Oh, he's a holy boy. Like Avraham Avinu. His name is Avraham? Because of that or Stan? Tell him he got a lot of airtime. My brother-in-law, Naftali's cousin, had a baby the Shabbos before Yom Kippur, and the bris was on the Sunday before Yom Kippur, before Tisha B'Av, and the bris was Tisha B'Av Sunday, that was a nidcha. Does the father fast on Tisha B'Av? If you have a baby, let's say someone had a baby boy this past Sunday, and they're making a bris on Tisha B'Av Sunday, does the father fast? Does the sandik fast? No. What if somebody makes a bris on Shavas B'Tammuz? Does the father fast? Of course he does. But comes the Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch says, if Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos and it's pushed off to Sunday, the father, the sandak, the moyel, they daven mincha gedola, they bathe, and they eat. You hear this halacha? It's an incentive to become a moyel.
And if they want to fast, then
No, you're not allowed to fast. It's Yom Tif.
No, if they want to fast.
No, why would they want to? Maybe if they want
Because
to.
everybody else is.
Really?
Tisha B'Av.
They need therapy.
Seriously, if they want to fast.
Why would they want to fast? Yeah, okay.
Only allowed to eat for just the actual soup.
No.
Fast afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's done. They're over. They're finished.
Why in a regular fast, even if you broke your fast, you continue
It's Yom Tif. It's Yom Tif. They don't fast. For what?
for the moment of the bris.
No, well, the day is a Yom Tif, but only after Chatzos. Now, so watch this. The Shulchan Aruch paskins that if somebody makes a bris on Tisha B'Av nidche, they daven mincha gedola and they eat. Comes the Bir halacha. If someone is a choyle kitzas on a Tisha B'Av nidche, now, someone who's a choyle kitzas on a regular Tisha B'Av, they fast. A little bit of a choyle. Someone who has a headache on Tisha B'Av, you gotta persevere. If someone is a little bit of a choyle, Dak, what's considered a little bit of a choyle? No, choyle she'ein boi sakana does not fast on Tisha B'Av. But choyle,
Time COVID.
what?
COVID.
Second time COVID.
Second time COVID.
Sounds like my brother.
Your brother nailed you. Okay. So, whatever it is, a cold. Okay, a cold. Someone has a cold on Tisha B'Av. Choyle ktsas, says the Bir Halacha, a pregnant woman. They eat on Tisha B'Av. Comes the Shvus Yaakov. You said, who's the Shvus Yaakov? So if you watch the videos, we just was at his kever this past Friday. The Shvus Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov Reisher, who wrote the Ion Yaakov. By the way, the reason he wrote the Ion Yaakov is he became blind and he couldn't see, and he got a doctor to restore his vision, and he said, Hashem, you gave me back my einayim, so he wrote the Perosh Ion Yaakov. Says the Shvus Yaakov the following Kal V'chomer. Madach, if someone makes a bris on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, do they fast? Yes. But if someone's pregnant, do they fast on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz? No. So we see that being pregnant is more compelling than making a bris. Then on Tisha B'Av Nidcha, where if someone makes a bris, they don't fast after Chatzos. Certainly if someone's pregnant, they don't fast. That's the Kal V'chomer of the Shvus Yaakov. Got it? That if a Baal Bris who fasts on Tisha B'Av, but a pregnant woman does, a Baal Bris fasts on Shavas B'Tammuz, but a pregnant woman does not. So on Tisha B'Av, where a Baal Bris does not fast, certainly a pregnant woman does not fast. So I once asked Reb Shmuel first, one of the leading poskim today, Talmud Rav Moshe, but if the whole reason that a pregnant woman doesn't fast is that we learn it out from a Baal Bris who doesn't fast on Tisha B'Av, then maybe we should say that just like a Baal Bris has to wait until after Chatzos to eat, then a pregnant woman should have to wait until after Chatzos to eat. There are some poskim who say that a pregnant woman should wait until after Chatzos. But he said no. The bottom line is, it's a full-fledged Kal V'chomer. A pregnant woman is more compelling than a Baal Bris. And if a pregnant woman does not have to fast at all on Shavas B'Tammuz, then on Tisha B'Av, where even a Baal Bris doesn't have to fast the second half of the day, certainly a pregnant woman would not have to fast at all. Now,
Why does the Baal Bris have to fast on Shavas B'Tammuz?
because the prophet said you need to fast on Shavas B'Tammuz. So it's more compelling than the Suda of the bris.
He directed you
To everyone. In other words,
bris is an exception.
we're not going to make an exception for Shavas B'Tammuz. We'll only make an exception. So it comes out Tisha B'Av Nidche is more lenient than a regular Shavas B'Tammuz. Okay? Now, should we be makel for a pregnant woman? Yes or no? When Tisha B'Av comes out on Sunday.
Yes.
On Shabbos, that we push off to Sunday. Really, based on what we've been saying, we should not be lenient. Because when Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, it's not coming out on Shabbos and being pushed off to Sunday. It's coming out on Sunday. So really, we should be machmer for a pregnant woman, based on what we're saying. And we should be machmer for a Baal Bris. Nevertheless, regarding the Baal Bris and the pregnant woman, we say, even though in Lamdus it's like it's coming out on Sunday, but it's not as strict as if it came out on Sunday because it fell out on Sunday. It's only coming out on Sunday because it couldn't come out on Shabbos. So the bottom line is, we've spoken about 5 different scenarios regarding Tisha B'Av Shechaliyas B'Shabbos. Regarding Tashmish Hamita, we view it that Tisha B'Av came out on Sunday. Me'ikar Hadin, it's mutter. Klal Yisrael's minhag is to be machmer, at least for Bnei Ashkenaz. Regarding the question of a bar mitzvah boy who becomes bar mitzvah on Sunday, we say it's like Tisha B'Av came out on Sunday and the bar mitzvah boy has to fast. Regarding is there Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av, we say there is no Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av this year. Tisha B'Av came out on Sunday this year, did not come out on Shabbos. Regarding learning this year on Shabbos, it's not Tisha B'Av Shabbos. Tisha B'Av is Sunday, you can learn on Shabbos. After Chatzos, you have the Chumrah of the Rama. And regarding other leniencies, namely a pregnant woman or someone who's making a bris, regarding this we say we are also lenient, and they do not have to fast. A pregnant woman does not fast this Tisha B'Av. However, she should always ask her Rav. Don't say, I heard on TorahAnytime.com the rabbi said, you should know by now, you cannot paskin any halachos from Shiurim. You need to ask a directed question to a authorized halachic authority. What should I do? You can never paskin halacha from a shiur, but again, it seems that the halacha is that a pregnant woman does not fast this year Tisha B'Av, and if someone makes a bris, they daven mincha gedola, and I hope they would ask me to be the sandak, so I wouldn't have to fast either. But I do believe that Rebbe Yashiv, one time he was very not well, and he was not able to fast on Tisha B'Av, and he took sandakas on in such a scenario. But of course we know the opinion of Rabbi is that under the circumstance where Tisha B'Av comes out on Shabbos, Rabbi wanted to push off Tisha B'Av completely, and as we explained in the past, because on Tisha B'Av is the birth of Mashiach, and Rabbi, who comes from the family of David HaMelech, was able to access the great principle of Noilad ben Zachar Nisrapa Kol HaMishpacha. So Rabbi feels the redeeming quality of Tisha B'Av, and we should all be zoicha to the great principle of Rabbi, that Hol ve'idchi idchi, and we should be zoicha to see the fruition of the prophecy of the Navi Zechariah, Tzoim HaRavi, V'tzoim HaChamishi, V'tzoim HaShvi, V'tzoim HaAsiri, Yeh L'beis Yehuda, L'sasoin U'L'simcha, U'L'mayadim Toivim, V'ha'emes V'ha'shalom Ehavu. I want to invite everyone again to join us on Tisha B'Av, 5:30 Peninsula. We have a lot of room. Bring your chairs. You want to sit on the floor, you want to sit on your comfort chairs that happen to be lower than a few tvachim, that are fully loaded with, the cushioning and the padding and the lever that you lift the feet up, and whatever you need to do. Or you could log in. It's going to be live streaming on TorahAnytime.com. Wish everybody an easy fast. Bracha v'atzlacha, kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.